So it's a particular time of year, this time of year, and I think one of the things that's particular about it is that we've been engaged in all kinds of activities all through the year, work projects, all the different things we've been engaged in, dealing with coronavirus and the different ways that we've been dealing with it. And at this time of year, it's as if all the different activities, projects, work that we've been involved with during the year, we're able to put that down. And what becomes more vividly alive to us when we do that, when we put those things down, is all the different connections that we have with people, connections with friends, connections with family. So it feels quite natural to want to express the importance of those connections. So we send cards, we give gifts, and so on. So one of the other ways that we mark the particular significance of this time of year is through stories. So there's a bunch of very famous stories that kind of come out at this time of year. So of course there's Dickens' A Christmas Carol. There's things like Dylan Thomas's A Childhood Christmas in Wales. There's the poem A Night Before Christmas and All Through the House. There's these different stories that give expression to this connection. One of my favourite stories is one by James Joyce. It's in his collection, The Dubliners, and it's called The Dead. There's also a lovely film version of it. And something about that story seems to express something about the significance of the time of year, and also something just significant more generally about the lives that we have, the lives that we lead. So I just wanted to read you a little excerpt from The Dead and then say a few things about it. So the story starts with a dinner party. It's for the Feast of the Epiphany, which actually takes place, I believe, after Christmas. And family and friends gather in a Dublin house along the quays. And there's all these wonderful characters and they interact at this dinner party. And then one by one the characters leave, and the last scene of the story is in the Gresham Hotel, where the main character, Gabriel, and his wife, Greta, basically retire for the evening. So I wanted to just read you the last little passage, or the last couple of passages from the story. A few light taps upon the pane made him turn to the window. It had begun to snow again. He watched sleepily the flakes, silver and dark, falling obliquely against the lamplight. The time had come for him to set out on his journey westward. Yes, the newspapers were right. Snow was general all over Ireland. It was falling on every part of the dark central plain, on the treeless hills, falling softly upon the bog of Allen, and, further westward, softening fully into the dark, mutinous Shannon waves. It was falling too upon every part of the lonely churchyard on the hill where Michael Fury lay buried. It lay thickly drifted on the crooked crosses and headstones, on the spears of the little gate, on the barren thorns. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe, and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead. So it never fails to move me when I hear the story, and I've often wondered, well, why is that? So this is a few thoughts about why that might be. It's obviously impossible to completely capture the meaning of something. But one of the things I love about the story is it starts with this, just this particular scene with particular people on a particular occasion. And they interact, things happen, the characters reveal their personalities, their priorities, and so on. And so it starts particular, and then towards the end, there's this evocation of a kind of childhood love and a boy that dies for love of Greta. That's the Michael Fury we heard about, whose body lies in the churchyard. And then it's something sort of alchemical seems to happen, where we go from something particular to something universal. And Gabriel's soul swooned slowly, and as if some kind of new consciousness emerges in his mind. And he becomes particularly aware of all the people, the living and the dead. And again, that's something that we become particularly conscious of at this time of year. Are the people who've joined our circle, our family and our friends, and also the people that have left. And in many cases, you become aware of people who have passed away. There's that moment where you look at your Christmas card list and you see there's a person who you might have sent a card to last year, who you're not going to send a card to this year because they've passed away in the last year. So it's a particularly kind of poignant time. And that movement from the universal, from the particular to the universal, brings to mind for me the Metta Bhavana, this meditation practice, where you start with the particular, you start with yourself, a friend, a neutral person, someone you find difficult, or an enemy, and then you move from there to the universal. And there's very much a sense of that love which is exclusive being expanded. So the Buddha says in the Metta Sutta, as a mother loves her child, her only child, so should one develop a heart of friendliness, a heart of loving kindness for the entire universe. So I think this story is analogous to what happens in the Metta Bhavana, where we begin to develop this heart that takes in the whole of human life. And inevitably when we do that, we take in the whole of human life, which means taking in the joy of human life, the celebration, but also taking in the difficulty and even taking in the fact that death exists, that life comes into being and life passes away again. So it's as if, at this time of year, we could become a little bit more keenly aware of, the context in which our lives take place, this context of connection with other human beings and other living beings. But again, at this time of year, there's a bigger context as well that we can bring to mind. And this is the context that within human life, there is the potential for awakening. There is the potential for this new kind of consciousness to emerge in human consciousness and enlightened consciousness. And this vision of the whole of humanity and the snow falling brings to mind the vision that the Buddha had on the night of his enlightenment. So according to the accounts that we have, the Buddha, this vision of what arose in the Buddha's mind of all sentient beings and their lives coming into being and passing away again. And it's as if because the Buddha had developed his mind, his heart, to the extent that he was able to take in that vision and be able to be with it, to that deep equanimity, the akupa, the unshakableness of his mind, was able to be there with the enormity of what he was seeing. And that, of course, is what we're trying to develop, is to transform our mind so that we can take in the whole of humanity with love, with all its troubles and with all its distress and with all its joy as well, and hold that in our minds. So I just wanted to finish just with the image of snow falling. So it's such an expressive image, the fact that when it snows, I think one of the most enchanting things about it is that the atmosphere completely changes, sound completely changes, obviously the look of things completely changes, everything is shrouded in white. There's even a sort of subtle smell that you get when it snows. So it's as if the snow falling is this kind of transformative event that happens sort of in the way that we perceive things. And of course that is what metta does. Metta changes the way that we see things. It changes the way that we see our lives. It's a transformation or a transmutation in consciousness. So maybe what I'll do to finish is just read that last little bit. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe, and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead.